Welcome everyone to the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz 2025. We have Grandmaster Arjun Erigaisi coming to the board. He has played a fantastic tournament to the start of it. He is on 4 out of 4 right now as he makes his way to the board. Arjun beat Marco Materia, GM Sandeepan Chanda, Bai Jinshi, and Aram Hakobian, and now is on the top board facing Magnus Carlsen. As Arjun arrives to the board, he's the first one to arrive. His opponent is not there, and the games are about to begin. And as the entire hall settles in, what a beautiful view we have in Qatar, Doha here, as NRK also is talking into the camera there. And speaking about Magnus Carlsen, not yet at the board. Magnus himself has played quite well here and he enters in as he's beaten Lorenzo Lodici, David Paravian, Ituri Zaga, and Anton Guyaro. And there he comes in, and the arbiter signals to Arjun to start the clock. As Magnus comes by, the hall is quite big, so it takes roughly few seconds, at least a minute to enter in. And there he is coming to the board. And a handshake. Magnus has the white pieces. We are ready to go. As always, when Magnus comes late to the board, you can see there he has taken up around 40 seconds. He doesn't rush into making his first move. He calms himself down, adjusts his pieces, and now opens with knight to f3. Arjun plays the symmetrical with knight to f6. He brings his knight out, and Magnus now, with many options in his hand, goes pawn to c4. The English opening, but it could transpose into anything here. Arjun and Magnus already have quite the interesting sort of rivalry building amidst themselves. e6 played here by Arjun, and Magnus brings his knight out to c3. We have d5, and so the queen's gambit declined is on the board with knight bd7. Arjun trying to be very solid here. Bishop goes to g5. That is an interesting line here chosen by Arjun with bishop b4, the Ragozin system, and he plays his pawn to c5. Now when you play this way, you are essentially going to take an isolated pawn position with ed, which you are ready to take. And there you see Magnus chops off the pawn on c5, and queen a5 played, putting pressure on this pawn. Now if rook c1, somehow a2 is weakened and knight e4 was threatened here, so knight d2 is played to stop knight e4 ideas. But now I can take on c5 or c3. He first takes on c3, b takes c3, and again you can take either of these pawns. Wonder what Arjun will choose here. But Magnus has not really played super ambitiously here in this position. He's just playing something whereby he gets a playable position against Arjun. A fighting position is all that he hopes for. And Arjun now trying to sort of think which pawn to capture, and he takes queen takes c3. Well, if he gets the c5 pawn, he would be very happy, but rook c1. Oh, first he takes bishop f6. Arjun takes back with the knight. And now bishop to b5 check. You block here with bishop d7. And I guess the idea for Magnus is to take on d7, or maybe the intermediate rook c1. He goes for it, Rook comes to c1, queen a5 makes a lot of sense. He brings his queen back, and now bishop takes d7, knight takes d7, and the pawn on c5 is hanging. You could potentially think about queen g4 ideas, but he first castles here. And knight takes c5 played. Now black is a pawn up, but he goes knight to b3, takes, queen takes, attacking the pawn on b7, keeping an eye on the pawn on d5. You can try and defend this, but Arjun's like, I don't want to. He goes castles, and Magnus is ready to chop this pawn on b7. It's looking like the game is quite a dull, boring affair. Queen takes b7 and should end in a draw pretty quickly. You can also look at Magnus's expressions there. He doesn't feel super thrilled. Queen takes a2, rook a1 comes in, attacking the pawn on a7. I go back queen c4, and now rook takes on a7. He chops it off, and now there's only one small imbalance here. If you can get rid of this pawn, it's already equal. However, with this pawn still standing on d5, if there's someone who's playing for a win, it's white. It's not a win, but at least trying for something. h3, Magnus takes away the back rank issues. Arjun, by the way, has 9 minutes 36 seconds. Magnus has 5 minutes on the clock. h3, and now rook comes to d1. Queen to e2, attacking the rook here. And so queen to a4 played. Brings his queen in, and g6. A good idea by Arjun, trying to make some space for his king on g7. And Magnus needs to find a way to make some progress. He goes rook a1. And Arjun is ready to harass with queen to b2. He's putting pressure on the rook on a1. Magnus plays rook f1, a clear sign that he's playing here for the win. And Arjun calmly brings his king up to g7. Queen a5 played. He's now attacking the pawn here on d5. And next, he has stopped rook d8. So queen b3, defending here, but also stopping any rook coming to d1. Queen comes to d2. And now once again, with the idea of rook d1, Arjun brings his queen to c4. And we have rook to d1, attacking the pawn on d5. h5 played. And g3. Just creating a luft. He may want to take this pawn on d5, but he's like, I'll wait. And Arjun doesn't also want to get into any passive defense. He's trying to actively seek his chances here. He believes that he can hold this 4 versus 3 endgame. King g8. And now the queen goes into b7. Arjun enters in with rook a2, and now have to be careful. If you take here, queen c1 check, king g2, and rook a1, and already it's white who's getting mated here. So that's the reason why Magnus is kind of forced to take this pawn. Queen takes d5, and we enter this 4 versus 3 rook endgame. King g7, king g2, king comes to f6, king comes to f3, king e6 played, rook to b5, and he plays rook to c2, until you have your rook here. I'm curious to see how Magnus Carlsen makes progress. He first pushes his pawn to e4. Okay, Arjun says I'll wait, I'm in no hurry. And this is a theoretical draw, so it's completely fine. He goes rook a3. Now Arjun waits. King e3 played. Maybe he wants to play f3 and then bring his king up here. King f6, still waiting. And Magnus gives a check. This is the way in which you always try to press your opponent. King e7. h4. Rook c2. Arjun is in no hurry to prove anything. f3 played here. Now suddenly you can see Magnus wants to go king f4, then king g5. So rook g2, attacking the g3 pawn, king f4. The pressure's mounting bit by bit. You can see Magnus there with complete focus. Rook f2, and he pushes e5. So now he has some space. And he's trying to go for rook f6, king g5, f4, king h6, king g7. That would be a winning advantage here. Rook f1 played by Arjun. Rook b6. Magnus waits. Okay, in these waiting moves sometimes make your opponent go wrong, but Arjun is calm and patient. Also notice how he's kept slightly extra time on the clock. Check. King comes up. Again he comes back. Rook to b3, defending the pawn on f3. Plays rook e2, attacking the e5 pawn, although it's not really hanging. Check. King comes back to e7, and now again waits with rook a6. Arjun again waits with rook f2. Check. King comes up. Check again. And in order to make progress, maybe rook f6 is an important move. He plays it. So the idea could be king g5. Can we go with rook e2 here? Seems like a good move. But Arjun goes rook h2. A bit surprising. And Magnus, with just 25 seconds, goes king g5. He's trying to make some progress. Arjun needs to remain careful here. He goes rook g2. Now the point is, if you go g4, I'll take and play rook e2 to attack this pawn. So king h6. Wow. Arjun takes, and now king g7 maybe. Then there's g5. He goes f4, trying to stop g5. And king f8. a6, king e7. Amazing play, attacking the rook. E takes f7. It's the only sequence of moves to hold the draw. Wow. Beautiful play. King f8. And Arjun is still equal. He takes on g6, and now an important move, rook g4. But Arjun goes rook h3. Rook g4 might have been better there. And Magnus goes king g5. He takes the pawn. Rook h6. Oh my goodness. We are entering in to a rook f and h pawns against a rook. King f5. King g7, rook takes pawn check. Not a check, rook g5 threatened. He goes to the side. King comes back. Ooh, this is a theoretical draw, the f and h pawns. But it's so difficult to hold it in real life. And so Magnus would be right now thrilled at getting the f and h pawns from 4 versus 3. Rook b1, rook check. Arjun already has found some good defensive moves to bring the position here, but now it's not going to be easy. Look at Magnus there, blitzing it out, gives a check. Now always remember, when you play rook versus f and h pawn, your rook belongs somewhere on b1 or a1. Why? Because it can give a check from the side as well as from the bottom. Rook check, and now you can go to h7. Also f7 is fine. He goes to h7, rook to e6, and wait, there is no hurry. Arjun goes rook h1. It's also quite a natural move. He's attacking the h4 pawn. Magnus gives a check. Very important to come up. That's very, very critical, because if you went down, you were losing. Rook e8. Smart move. If you take here, you want to give a check and win the rook. So the king has to come back. King g7. Another check. King h6. Rook check. King goes to h7. And Magnus brings his king to g5. He gives a check here. The king goes to h5. We have king to g7. And Arjun is being super careful here. He goes here, rook to a6. He's playing excellent chess. Rook g2, love this move. Keeping it under control, keeping it under the wraps. Rook f5, again threatening to give a check. And always Arjun has kept extra time on the clock as compared to his opponent. Rook f2, lovely move. We're on move 81. Magnus, well, when he gets an opportunity, he doesn't really let it go. He keeps on grinding. Check. King comes back to f3. Another move attacking the pawn. King g3. Rook goes to b2. And he cuts off the king. The rook comes back, taking the f4 and h4 pawn under control. Rook a3, rook b1, king comes up, and king to f6. Is there some way that Magnus can make any progress? He pushes his pawn. This is now getting very intense. So after moving around, Magnus tried one plan, Arjun thwarted it. Now the second plan begins. King f5. That's why it's so dangerous to play against Magnus, because every opportunity he has, he maxes it out. Rook b1. Rook check. Again, what's safer? Both moves draw, but perhaps king h7 going in front of the pawn might be the safer move. And Arjun goes the other side. King f7. Magnus brings his king here. He's trying to get in. If he gets f5, king gets in. It might be dangerous. Check. Now it's getting very concrete. King h6 and attack this pawn. Rook f1. He plays it. Rook g4, defending the pawn, and king f6 seems like a fine move. He goes rook h1. Can we go king g5? He goes rook to g5. His plan is to play f5, slowly make progress. The king comes up. Nice move. King h7. Oof, Magnus had just 2 seconds on the clock. He got a bit worried there. Rook h4. Arjun attacks this pawn. And Magnus has to be careful. He goes king g8. Can we take this pawn now? He takes it. It's a good move. And rook g6. Okay, both king e7 and king f5 draw here, but which one? He goes king f5. Rook a6. And rook to b4. I love this move because he now has long side checks. Check, king g7, check, and Magnus agrees to a draw. What a defense by Arjun Erigaisi. True, he didn't need to reach here, but still, it was fantastic as both the players put back their pieces. Arjun is like, you know what, rook g3. I made this entire plan with the king coming in here. Was it fine? And Magnus was like, maybe I didn't see anything wrong with it, but why didn't you simply go here rook g4? It would have been an easier draw. Yeah, well, they shake hands and the game is drawn. Kudos to Arjun for the draw, and Magnus once again, what a grind by him. The all-new ChessBase 26 is the ultimate way of managing your chess databases and becoming a better chess player. ChessBase is a software used by all the best players in the world, and it is the top tool for the best players to work on chess in a professional manner. There are innumerable features that the ChessBase software provides, like saving your games, annotating them, referencing huge databases, learning new openings, similar endgames, tactical patterns, and much more. The all-new ChessBase 26 has an absolutely amazing new feature of building excellent opening reports. You can also now sort games based on them being rapid, blitz, or classical in the reference tab itself. Add to this the Mega Database 2026 and you will not only get more than 11 million games that ChessBase can use as data, but also more than 110,000 annotated games by masters. Get your ChessBase 26 and Mega 2026 now. The link is in the description.